I continue to have the happy duty of introducing our speakers. Our next one is Paul Doherty, who is Accenture's CTO. He's going to talk to us about people first in the digital economy. As someone who's co-written 2 books that have the word machine in the title, I find this a novel concept and kind of an interesting one. But like all of us at the IDE, Paul and Accenture are interested in this new world of bringing together what people are actually good at with what machines are actually good at, even as that boundary shifts really quickly. The reason I'm looking forward to hearing from Paul is that in his role at Accenture, he has this wonderful front row seat to watch how large enterprises all around the world are grappling with this change. I'm looking forward to seeing what he and his company have learned about that. So, Paul, welcome.
Thanks, Andy. What I thought I'd do is build on a lot of what we heard about already today. This has been a fascinating day for me to hear a lot of the great insights and great presentations today, and it really validates for me why we became a founding member of the Initiative for the Digital Economy. I mean, the learnings that we get out of this and the participation is really fantastic. And as Andy said, we are a big organization, and I'm fortunate to be in a position where I can see a lot of what we're doing at Accenture, and I also get a chance to work with a lot of our clients. And in my role as CTO, I'm responsible for our technology direction and where we're going and where we're taking the company, but also then working with our clients as we help them shape what they're doing. And if you look at Accenture, what we are is we're about a $32 billion company. It's about $32 billion in annual revenue. With about 400,000 people. We're a little bit shy of 400,000 people right now. And we're growing double digits. We're growing a little over 10% a year. We've had 10%, over 10%, 10 to 12% growth for the last 6 quarters. And if you look at that, what that means in the context of our business, and one other stat I'll share with you, is we measure very explicitly the rotation of our business from traditional technology to digital and all the things we're talking about. And of that 32 billion in revenue as of the last quarter, about 40% of our revenue has shifted to be digital, digital in nature. So about 40% of the business shifted that way. So if you look at what those numbers mean to us every year, it means that every year we have to hire over 100,000 people, over 100,000 new employees join every year. We have to generate over $3 billion of revenue, profitable revenue. And it's generally that those 100,000 people, that $3 billion of revenue is generally in technologies that didn't exist 4 or 5 years ago, as we rotate to the new. So in essence, we're trying to create something like a few unicorns of growth every year on top of Accenture, which is what I'm going to talk about a little bit in the context of the digital economy and what we see happening. So, but just as a prelude to that, this is a group that is well aware of what's happening. But one of the things I like to look at is how fast the change is happening, which Andy and Eric wrote about very, very well in the book. But we can make anything that we can imagine now, and the latency between execution and idea is shorter than it ever has been, and is shortening very rapidly. So you can think about Star Wars. We saw Jibo, liked Star Wars, 1977. You're all familiar with Boston Dynamics, based here, bought by Google. Looks a lot like the characters we saw back then, and they're coming to life for real. Knight Rider, who was a Knight Rider fan back in the 80s? Michael Knight, Knight Rider. Knight was the Knight Interactive 2000 was what was the name. It was KIT. The name of the car was KIT. Knight Interactive 2000. Even back then, it was interesting where the KIT was the second fictional invention of Knight Industries. The first invention of Knight Industries was called KARR, K-R-R-R, Knight Automated Robotic Rover, Knight Automated Robotic Rover. And the storyline on KARR was that it was programmed for self-preservation and became a threat to the world, which is why they invented KIT, which had the features of augmentation helping Michael Knight, which is interesting to look back even to the 80s of these themes that we're talking about now of people versus machines were very much in play. And then now you see, again, what we see now is we have our automated vehicles and connected vehicles, and Nissan's new feature on one of their vehicles is push to retrieve your car, much like Michael Knight could do. So again, fiction becoming reality. Her, many of you have probably seen Her. We talked earlier about Jibo and social robots. We have that with the Amazon Echo and Alexa and things like Amelia from IPsoft that I'll talk about in a little bit. that again are things that we're deploying for real for clients and in our business. And then you go back, we have the supervillains. Dr. No, any Dr. No fans? The first James Bond movie, supervillain. Dr. No was a billionaire industrialist who was very interested in space exploration. So that might remind you of somebody. No analogies intended. And what's happening is, again, I'm not going to prolong this. Sometimes I talk about this a little bit longer, but I think this is well known to this group, is the pace of change and the increasing steepness of the technology waves that are impacting my business, our business, and the business of the companies that we work with, and those of you in the room. So there's a lot of technology curves starting with the mainframe, which is when I started in technology with punch cards in the mainframe many years ago. With many of these curves, we had a lot of time to deal with them. Things like the first generation of the web and client server, we had a decade to deal with these transitions in our organizations. And the change now is that the latency is shorter, as I said earlier. So blockchain, I think, is a great example. Blockchain 2 years ago, not many people were talking about. Sandy gave us a very good overview of an insight into blockchain earlier. Within 2 years, blockchain went from something that was part of, we viewed as tied up in Bitcoin and didn't think about all that much, to today, blockchain is a major and growing part of our business. We're doing work for many clients. We've invested in 2 blockchain technology companies, and we have a blockchain practice spread across our business, including in our India delivery centers, our global delivery network. And that shows the speed with which these technologies are moving into business, which is why we have to think a little differently about our business and our clients' businesses. And then I really like some of the things we talked about earlier today about the ability to measure the impacts of digital and what's happening. This is a chart from some work that we did with the World Economic Forum. Accenture was the partner with the World Economic Forum on an initiative last year that's continuing this year called Digital Transformation of Industries. And I was fortunate to be one of the sponsors of this work. And the interesting thing about this analysis is we think about digital and people first, back to this people first theme, the impact of digital on society and people. The interesting conclusion of this research was that the societal benefits and the benefits to people of these technologies are far greater than the benefits to industry. But the point is, if you don't get the right incentives and alignments in place, we won't get the societal benefits and the people-related benefits. You might just get the one-sided benefits that could accrue. And we tried to map that out. This is a pretty complicated picture, but I'm happy to send you this research, and some of you in the room were involved in this work with the World Economic Forum. But on the right-hand side, you can see things where the industry opportunities where the industry value is 3 times greater than the societal value. Those are the things we believe are going to be dealt with in the natural course of capitalism and companies investing to improve their business. The left-hand side is the troubling side, where the societal benefits dwarf the industry benefits, which leads to a lot of inertia and things happening. And there's things on the left, like in the automotive industry, the societal benefits for smart driving or for self-driving cars and automated driving features. The societal benefits are about $2.5 trillion over the next 10 years. The societal benefits in the automotive industry of those types of technologies. The industry benefits are only around $500 million. And the way that industries invest to get the industry benefits won't necessarily give us the societal benefits. So if you look at things like the fact that automobile accidents kill 1.2 million people around the world every year, and that the emissions just from automobiles kill another 200,000, probably a low estimate every year. That's 1.4 million lives that could be impacted in some way with a different approach where we need to work a little differently than we have historically to get the benefits. So the work we talked about earlier on the ability to measure and quantify some of the impacts of these things in the economy becomes, I believe, very important to make sure we understand and we can have the right collaboration between business and regulators and governments and different societal organizations to make sure the right things happen in the digital economy. So that's one of the elements of what we mean by people first. And then we put this into a frame that we use. This is from something we call our Accenture Technology Vision. We do this every year, and this is from this year's vision. And the title of the vision was People First, and it was called The Primacy of People in the Digital Age. And again, this is out there if you want a copy, or I can send you a copy. But what we're talking about is in this, if you believe this lead up that I talked about, what we believe is that we're at a stage with technology where we've had a wave of technologies hit us that I showed on the earlier slide that we've talked about, but we're really at the very early stages of far greater innovation to come. But even with the early stage that we're at now, we believe that most companies, most of the clients we deal with, are in a state of what we call digital culture shock. They're stuck with what to do about the legacy. They're stuck with some organizational and cultural transformations and leadership challenges. And I believe even today, without even any of the future potential that we have going forward with technology, even with the innovation available today, companies could do amazing things beyond what they're doing. But so we don't have necessarily an innovation issue. We've got more innovation than companies have adopted even today. The issue is it's an adoption issue and how companies get past this digital culture shock to adopting even the innovation today, much less the mechanisms and culture they need to prepare for the innovations of tomorrow. And that's what we're talking about in this technology vision that we put together. And we had, if you believe that, we have 5 trends that we put out here that I'll just summarize very briefly in the interest of time. One of which is intelligent automation, which I think Cynthia talked about an example of this very well earlier with the social robots. What we're talking about with intelligent automation is how to put automation to work in a way which empowers and enables people to be more effective. And we talk about this idea of making humans super rather than making superhumans as the goal. So again, making humans super. And the example that actually, I'll give you an example in a minute. I'll hold off and give you an example in a minute. But intelligent automation is about things like AR, VR, mixed reality, artificial intelligence, robotics, and a variety of other technologies coming together to help automate business in a different way than it's been automated before. The liquid workforce is something we believe is going to impact our business a great deal, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And we believe it's going to impact many other organizations as well. And this is thinking about the workforce differently, and factors like a statistic that we've seen, not research we did, but other research that shows that I think up to 50% of the U.S. workforce will be contingent labor within about 3 years. I think is the number, 50% contingent labor within 3 years, which means to me, for my company and for our clients, the best talent that you might need to make your business run the way it needs to, you might not be able to get that through employees. You need flexible workforce models, different tools. You need crowdsourcing and different models to bring the right talent in to complement your business, not around the edges of just doing a little bit of crowdsourcing and liquid workforce around the edges, but thinking about a liquid workforce, non-employees and crowds as part of the core architecture of how your business works. And that's what we mean by liquid workforce. And again, I'll give you an example. Platform economy, Marshall does the best job of talking about this of anybody I know, so I won't say a lot more about it. But platforms and the move to businesses moving to platforms, we believe, is the key to the next generation of business models that we'll see evolving. Predictable disruption is this idea that too many of our big clients are on the back foot, waiting for the change and looking to, setting up the discussions with Google and Uber and other companies to understand how those companies are going to disrupt their industry. We believe that there's a lot more opportunity for the big companies to anticipate and be the disruptors. Interesting example was Volvo's CEO, who came out recently when they announced their plans for their own self-driving autonomous vehicle. He also announced that they're going to self-insure all the passengers and all the purchasers of those self-driving vehicles, which is anticipating the disruption that's coming as autonomous vehicles come into play with the insurance industries and other industries. And we believe there's a lot more opportunity for companies to get on the front foot with that. And then digital trust is probably my favorite of these. And part of this is cyber and the need for companies to do more to protect information better than they have in the past. But the other thing I like about digital trust that I think is important in the mix here is this idea that we believe trust is much more important as a differentiator going forward into the world we're moving into. Because if you have a Jibo, or if you have a Echo, or if you have a Google Home sitting on your kitchen counter, its ability to be effective and be valuable to you is going to be based on its ability to get better data and information on you. And there's going to be a new type of trust equation that forms. And since Google's Home launch, there's been some interesting articles already written about the need for Google to change its own behavior around customer information and such. And I believe that as you look at more services like this, there's going to be an increased opportunity for companies to differentiate themselves based on the trust that they engender with their consumers, and it leads to some radical behavior shifts that we believe are necessary within companies, where companies are moving from a digital behavior of optimizing click-through and doing multivariate testing to decide whether to move the OK button from up here to down there so that people inadvertently click to buy more frequent flyer miles or whatever they might do. And that kind of behavior needs to shift from optimizing digital click-throughs and things like that to more engendering trust among consumers so you can get the right relationship that you need to drive the enhanced services in the digital economy. So that's overall the 5 trends that we talk about in this belief on why people first matters, and people first is a theme underneath all those. Here's a couple examples of how this comes into play. This is I can't name the company on this, but this is a global 200 company, a very large manufacturer, where we put in a new manufacturing system which enables their low-skilled assembly workers to use mixed reality, actually augmented reality, goggles that are also equipped with laser-guided precision assembly techniques and have machine learning capabilities tied in. So they learn the capabilities of the worker, help enhance the worker's capabilities, and use augmentation to allow those workers to be more productive. So they're more productive, higher quality, do more rewarding, fulfilling jobs, kind of a win-win-win in terms of this idea of using smarter technology to augment people. That's a real example. Another example, and this is more in the kind of collaborative sharing economy, is BMW with what they've done with Drive Now, which is ride sharing on the per minute, per mile basis, exposing ride sharing to their employees, which is cannibalizing their car sales on the one hand, but also exposing them to the new types of relationships and new types of platform that they need going forward. Or Hyundai, which is a client of ours where we implemented smart shipping. Hyundai Freight is the largest shipping organization in the world, and they want to move to a business model rather than just moving containers around the world. They want to offer enhanced and more granular services in containers as a service and smart features of containers as a service, temperature handling, all sorts of characteristics that are monitored by hundreds of sensors in the containers, on the ships, in the ports, that they can offer an enhanced set of services to their customers. So containers as a service from a shipping company. Or Philips, this is an example that's been talked about a lot in healthcare with Health Suite, which is their IoT platform powered by Amazon and Salesforce and Aliyun and other providers, that's providing a new type of platform to improve patient outcomes and better connect providers, physicians, patients, and delivering those outcomes. So those are the kinds of things that embody those trends that I talked about earlier. But what I wanted to do is shift gears a little bit and talk about how we see this impacting our business. And this is some things that we're working on right now that I'll share with you in the spirit of showing what we're thinking about and getting some feedback. We believe, as we look at our business going forward, that there's 3 key defining things we need to worry about. One is what happens outside the data center, because things are moving outside the data center rapidly, either to the cloud or to distributed technology in cars or watches, wherever they might be. Software and then data. And then there's a series of trends up here. Cloud is an obvious one. We're already big in cloud services, but we believe that we're just at the inflection, the tipping point there. We believe there's a big opportunity in distributed computing, actually, with things like GPUs that power artificial intelligence and neural networks in a different way that may not be as suitable to cloud models. Quantum computing, which we've already done some quantum computing problems on a small scale with some specific business problems. So we believe there's forms of computing that aren't cloud that are going to be very interesting that we need to pay attention to as well. On the software side, it's all about doing software in new ways. So evolution of software to very different models going forward. This is all the continuous integration, DevOps, extreme programming, very different ways of building things. Artificial intelligence infused in to the business architecture and technology architecture. We believe, what we've seen to date is most companies have used artificial intelligence at the edge of what they're doing. We believe artificial intelligence and the data needed to power the algorithms really needs to be a core part of the technology architecture and the business architecture, the way a company operates, and we're doing a lot in that area. And then the platforms, rise of platforms and building platforms, the two-sided platforms is a big part of it there. Data, we believe data is kind of been exploited or not focused on enough as people have thought about their business strategies, because the data is what's going to be required to drive the new business models, artificial intelligence, the platforms, et cetera. So we believe there's opportunities for us and for our clients to look at new types of data services businesses that they form. I think IBM's purchase of the weather company was an interesting move in that regard, because weather is a key determining set of data that impacts a lot of industries. So more and more of those types of plays will happen, and we're looking at our role in that. And then those 3 things coming together are where it gets really interesting, I think, for a business like ours and for a lot of our clients' businesses. which is, the number 7 up there is the future of process. We believe we're at a point where business processes have been kind of locked and static since probably the 90s when there was a big wave of innovation around re-engineering business process. We've had a huge wave of technology innovation that's happened with everything since then, but business processes generally look very similar to the way they did. And we believe that with intelligence, AI, social robots, all the other things we're talking about coming in, we're at a point to really completely disrupt the way business process looks in most organizations. That leads to new architectures, API-enabled, appified architectures, and new ways of tying things together. And then finally, something we call combinatorial extensions, stealing a page again from Andy and Eric's book, where we believe that IT is fueling interesting advances in related areas that will cause us and our clients to need to operate differently. So when you can sequence a genome for under $100 because of the rise of information, because of what technology is enabling, how does that change not only the healthcare industry, but the insurance industry and other industries? How does new material science like graphene change the way that you might distribute clothing, fashion products, clothing products, et cetera? There's a lot of interesting combinatorial types of advances beyond pure information technology. So that's where we're going with our own strategy, and these are some examples, just to flash them up. So earlier this week, we announced a practice, an artificial intelligence practice, partnering with IPsoft and their Amelia product, and we showed some technology down at SAP Sapphire conference this year about Amelia understanding and using SAP as to perform a variety of business functions. So Amelia plugged into SAP, performing transaction processing, and for real, we're doing this. That's work we're showing that we're doing for some clients. MyWizard is a platform we deployed to disrupt our own business. It's artificial intelligence inside. So MyWizard includes capabilities like the one you see here, which is a virtual project manager who not only will learn your project that you're trying to run as an individual, but will know the full set of what's going on in the 10,000 concurrent projects that Accenture is doing, and the tens of thousands of projects we've done over the past couple of years, and give you the best insight from all of our accumulated learnings about how to manage projects, how to do testing, et cetera, et cetera. And then you'll see on the right, we're investing in some of our own platforms where we believe we have a big enough business and a market position to drive some platform type of approaches. There's a couple examples there. So just where we see this going, just a few more slides, then I'll wrap up. I think Viv is really interesting to look at in this light. Viv, which is Doug and Adam's company after they sold Siri to Apple. This is their new company. They demoed the product. They've been working on it for a while, talking about it for a while. They demoed the product, I think, last week. And a very powerful example of a conversational agent that has deep insight and deep insight comprehension and ability to act. And this coming together again with business process is very interesting. Rio Tinto is a client of ours that we're working with in a very different way, kind of thinking about these strategies. What we're doing with Rio Tinto is they're a mining company. If you follow mining, this isn't a great time for the global mining business. It's a cyclical business up and down, and this is one of the worst downs they've seen. It's a big issue for them is how do they avoid any fixed costs they can. So they approached us, and they believe they need to go digital with all this as well in a lot of ways. So they wanted to become a new company and transform overnight, and to be more nimble and dynamic. So we structured an arrangement with them. What we're doing for Rio Tinto is on a as a service per employee basis. We're doing a deal where we're only compensated based on every new employee we enable to work differently. All the capital investment to move their systems, to convert their systems, to build the new, is all part of the deal that we've done with Rio Tinto. And the reason I mentioned this one is this move to outcome-based services and as-a-service-based consumption models we think is a natural outgrowth of digital models, and we believe that this is more of how services that come from Accenture and other companies like us will be consumed going forward, in addition to services from many other companies. Michelin, just as an example of this, Michelin is the tire company, a consumer goods company. They don't run a lot of their own retail. They sell tires that are sold through tire shops, but have already moved to a model of tires as a service, where they'll sell individuals and fleets quality of tires and road miles of tires, rather than just replacing tires when they blow out. Very different business model, gets some customer engagement and stickiness, and a different way to engage directly in their market that they were somewhat disintermediated from in their old model. Boston Scientific has a platform, I think it's called Advantix, and we partnered with them and used one of the platforms I talked about earlier, our Accenture Insights platform. And again, another one of these outcome-based deals where the measurement of this kind of solution will be based on reduced repeat hospital admission and shortening the cost and duration of hospital stays by using predictive analytics on all the patient data that's accumulated in the hospital, as well as when they leave the hospital through the discharge process and go into their home through IoT types of solutions in the home. And so analytics throughout that process and a lot of proactive intervention to reduce readmissions and improve the quality of care. It's another example of the kind of digital model and a different way of providing service. Fiat has a Uconnect model. Their view is the car is the platform, and Fiat is the platform owner in this case, and a vehicle to channel other products through the Uconnect platform into the car. Tesla, I think, is a great example in terms of the car as features being delivered again with the car as a platform through software. So more and more autonomous driving capabilities slowly released through software upgrades rather than hardware upgrades, which is the way many products are moving. And then in terms of a different realm, Udacity, and what Udacity is looking at with their business model and the nano degree concept, where you can pay a nominal amount of money to get a degree with it's kind of a soft guarantee of a job once you complete that degree to reskill yourself for the workforce in very relevant areas. So this is my last slide, just to wrap up. That's a broad landscape of what we see happening and some things we're doing in our business. Hopefully that gives you a view of the landscape we see. I think it's the biggest time of disruption that we've ever seen in our own company and the way we're changing our business, and the biggest time of disruption we've ever seen in the industries we work in. And the challenge we have and that I see our clients having is first of all, the three things I have up here, but the first one is change, is how do you get the culture of change going and change fast enough? That's what everybody's really struggling with, is how do you get that change in place? And in most cases, I believe it's about cultural change and starting at the leadership level and working through the company, needing to get an organization that can change fast enough. And that's something we're doing a lot of work on. This people first mentality, we believe, is very important to get the equation right. We believe companies that take this approach with their consumers and their employees will be more successful, so we believe that's very important. And then the big thing that we focus on a lot is balance. I mean, if you move too slow in this market, you lose because somebody else gets there first. If we're not fast enough at transforming our business, or our clients aren't fast enough, they lose to a new entrant. On the other hand, if you move too fast, you overinvest the capital and you lose your own business. Especially if you have investors and quarterly earnings and things, how do you move the business in a way that meets your investor expectations and transforms your business to where it needs to be? And that balance is a tremendously hard thing to get right and requires a lot of very creative thinking about how do we as an organization, Accenture, make a big bet on crowdsourcing, recognizing that that's going to cannibalize and impact the revenue of a good part of the business we do, and navigating those sorts of changes in a way that protect your business model is really the art of getting this right. So with that, I'll pause and wrap up. So thanks, Andy.
Time for a couple questions for Paul.
Accenture interacts with so many different companies, and I would guess in the context of the kind of things we're talking about here, they run the gamut from some that, excuse me, some that you think would be very adoptive, so to speak, to some, maybe even Rio Tinto as an example, that you might expect to be less adoptive. What sectors have surprised you the most in terms of taking on these new technologies and really transforming the way in which they go about doing their business?
It's a good question. I think the one sector that's surprising me right now is what's happening, just generally speaking, I guess, in manufacturing and industrial equipment. I was talking to some others earlier about this. If you look at what's happening, say, in Germany and starting to happen in Japan and some spots of the U.S. right now about manufacturing new industry platforms and new ways of driving manufacturing, I think that's very interesting, and that's a case where the existing industry incumbents, in a large case, are driving a lot of very active discussion and very bold moves. If you look in Germany as an example at what companies like Siemens, Schlumberger, and the Mittelstand companies in Germany are driving, I think that's very, very interesting. And spurring other companies to action. There's industries like utilities that have been pretty surprising to me in terms of how they're starting to adopt in some ways and looking at embracing digital power plant solutions and things like that, in addition to thinking about some of the new models. The challenge is in a lot of markets, there's regulatory rate-based recovery and a lot of things that make it very difficult to move. But the desire to move is a lot higher than I would have expected there.
So one of the themes that we've had kind of popping in and out of some of the presentations has been just you have a current workforce with a certain set of skills, you have a new set of skills that you need. What's the balance between retraining people, if that's possible, versus replacing people?
It's a great question, and I've changed my view on this a bit over time. I used to be a bigger believer in this two-speed IT model and the fact that you needed a kind of a new and a current and really to do things differently. I guess I'm not really a great fan of that right now because I think it's about how do you get the whole organization operating differently, even in the kind of what you might call the traditional part of the business. I think you need that part of the organization being innovative and adapting agile work practices and different things. We looked at our own business of the 400,000 roughly people that we've got. And we believe most of them can make the journey. They just need a lot of training. We invest $1 billion a year in training. I'm doing lots of things to retrain the people. We believe a lot of training and support's required, but most of the people can make the journey, provided we give them the right opportunities, provided part of the obligation is on us steering the business in the right way to generate the new kinds of work, so we have the opportunities to put the people on the new work and train them in that way. But it's also mixed. I guess you could say we're fortunate, although it's a challenge in our business, to have our business model in our industry and others in our industry is based on a lot of turnover. So we have about 16% or so attrition every year. And for 400,000 people, that's a lot of people leaving every year. So you have the opportunity to hire in a lot of people. That's why we hire over 100,000 people a year. So you have the opportunity to bring in a lot of new talent every year to refresh the base as well. We done?
Paul, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Andy.